She wasn't looking for redemption. She was just trying to survive. But sometimes, the world's most powerful comeback starts with nothing more than a broken name tag and a second chance. She said the shipping giant's debt to EBITDA was 4.8, and the forward curve was lying while holding a tray of lobster rolls. Can you believe it? One table away, a man in a 10-year-old sweater stopped chewing because every syllable she just muttered was worth 7 figures. He wasn't just any man, though. This was Robert King, a titan of finance, a man who'd built an empire out of sheer will and an uncanny knack for spotting what others missed. And right then, he knew he'd stumbled onto something truly extraordinary. Anna Chen, the name used to echo through the hallowed halls of Wall Street. Before she could even legally rent a car without that annoying underage fee, she was managing a $900 million long-short book. Think about that for a second. At just 24, she wasn't just good. She was a prodigy, the youngest vice president on her floor, her ascent meteoric. She was destined for the very top of force of nature in a notoriously cutthroat world. But then the fall, and it was brutal. At 25, just when she should have been cementing her legacy, she was escorted out by security. Her Bloomberg terminal password revoked, her name unceremoniously scratched off the door. It was a public, humiliating end to a dazzling career. The official reason. The kind of jargon that sounds serious but often hides a deeper truth. Unauthorized risk exposure, leading to client losses. It's the sort of phrase that can end careers even if it's not entirely accurate. The unofficial reason, a whispered rumor. A venomous serpent slithering through the trading floors, suggesting she'd front-run a pension fund's mega order. A cardinal sin in finance, a betrayal of trust that could never be forgiven. But the real reason, the real reason, was far more insidious. A classic tale of ambition and betrayal. It was a forged audit trail meticulously planted by her own mentor, Grant Leland. Can you imagine that the very person who should have championed her instead sacrificed her on the altar of his own greed, all so he could snatch the promotion that was rightfully hers? One swift board vote, one conveniently shredded compliance report, and Anna's career melted faster than a candle in a hurricane. Regulators eager to make an example slapped her with a lifetime ban. Newspapers, never ones to miss a scandalous headline, gleefully misspelled her name, adding insult to injury. And her parents' neighbors? Well, they just asked if she'd be selling Girl Scout cookies next. The irony, the sheer crushing irony, was almost unbearable. She fled the gilded cage of her Soho loft, donated half her designer wardrobe to Goodwill, a symbolic shedding of her old life, and took the first job that paid cash, daily waitressing at Pier 57, a bustling steakhouse overlooking the Hudson. Every morning, as she pinned on a name tag that simply read, Anna, trainee, she reminded herself of a fundamental truth: intelligence doesn't evaporate just because the world refuses to see it. It just finds new, unexpected places to hide, waiting for its moment. 3 years melted away like ice on a hot griddle. Anna, now 28, had mastered the art of carrying 4 plates on one arm while simultaneously calculating implied volatility in her head. Her new life at Pier 57 was a world away from the high-stakes trading floors, but it offered its own strange comforts. She actually liked the briny ocean smell that wafted through the dining room, a far cry from the stale air of a corporate office. She appreciated the simple, undeniable democracy of a 20% tip. And best of all, nobody here cared about her CFA charter or her past glories. All they cared about was whether she remembered to bring extra horseradish with their prime rib. It was a cleansing anonymity, a quiet exile that allowed her to heal. Thursdays were special. That's when the restaurant hosted Industry Night. The place would fill with the very people she'd once been among: stockbrokers, ad execs, pharma reps, all comparing bonus numbers over their bone-in ribeyes and expensive wines. Anna usually tuned them out, their boasts and market chatter just background noise to the clinking of glasses and the sizzle of steaks. But tonight was different. Tonight, a pair of slick asset managers started bragging a little too loudly about a can't-lose SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company for those not in the know. Basically a shell company that raises money to acquire a private company, taking it public without the traditional IPO process. These guys thought they were geniuses. Anna, despite herself, couldn't resist. As she refilled their water glasses, her voice a low murmur almost to herself, she dropped a bombshell. Your warrants are mispriced by 13 cents. Arbitrage that, and you'll still underperform the 3-month T-bill after taxes. They stopped mid-sentence, their confident smiles faltering. One of them, a man with a gold watch and an even bigger ego, laughed a dismissive, condescending sound. "What, are you the next Warren Buffett?" he sneered. Anna just shrugged a small, weary gesture. "Warren doesn't carry trays," she replied, her tone flat, but with a hint of something sharp beneath it. The other manager, perhaps sensing a challenge or just wanting to see the waitress squirm, leaned forward. "Prove it," he demanded. Without a word, Anna tore the paper liner from the breadbasket. In quick, confident strokes, she sketched a binomial tree, a complex financial model used to value options. She circled the node where the warrant delta flipped a critical point of inflection and slid the impromptu analysis next to his phone. "Check it open tomorrow. You'll owe me a $100 tip." She walked away, leaving them stunned, their ribeyes suddenly forgotten. Across the room, Robert King, founder of King Capital, a name synonymous with shrewd investments and relentless success, set down his coffee. Forbes had pegged his net worth at $3.4 billion, but he often felt richer in experience than in dollars. He'd come to Pier 57 not for the food, but to think to untangle the knots of a complicated board fight he was planning. He certainly hadn't come to eavesdrop on a waitress. Yet every word she spoke, every precise calculation, every nuanced insight fit together like a Swiss movement. He recognized it instantly, the cadence of real mastery. It was relaxed, certain, almost bored by its own brilliance. He'd seen it only a handful of times in his decades on Wall Street, and never not once from someone delivering lobster rolls. Before the dessert menus even had a chance to drop, Robert signaled for the check. He wasn't leaving because he was finished eating. He was leaving because he needed to know more. When Anna approached her face, a mask of polite efficiency, he pointed to a SPAC ticker on his phone. It was the same one those asset managers had been bragging about. "What happens?" he asked, his eyes piercing, "if the merger vote fails and the floor drops to trust value?" It was a complex, multi-layered question designed to test the depth of her understanding, to see if her earlier brilliance was a fluke or genuine. Anna didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Her response was a torrent of precise technical jargon delivered with the casual confidence of someone discussing the weather. Redemption volume spikes borrow goes to 300 fee. You short the commons and synthetically long the rights capture the spread. Deliver the box and you're out in 3 days with 30 basis points of pure alpha. Robert blinked, not once but twice. His mind, accustomed to rapid-fire calculations and strategic thinking, was reeling. "You just summed up a trade that took my desk 6 weeks to model," he stated, his voice a low rumble of incredulity and admiration. She offered a small, polite smile. Occupational hazard, she quipped, a hint of her old wit sparkling in her eyes. It was a defense mechanism, a way to deflect the intensity of his gaze, but it also confirmed his suspicions this woman was the real deal. He extended a hand across the table, a gesture of respect and invitation. "Robert King," he introduced himself. She shook it, her grip surprisingly firm. Anna Chen. And before you ask, she cut him off, anticipating the inevitable question, "Yes, I used to run money, and no, I don't want a job." It was a preemptive strike born of years of disappointment and the bitter taste of betrayal. She wasn't looking for charity, or even a second chance on someone else's terms. Robert studied her, then truly studied her. He noted the subtle curve of her shoulders, the way she balanced her weight on tired feet, the micro-tension in her jaw. These weren't the signs of someone who genuinely didn't want something. These were the telltale signals of someone who couldn't afford to hope. Someone who had been burned so badly that the idea of wanting again, of aspiring again, was too painful to contemplate. People who say "I don't want" usually mean "I can't afford to hope." It was a lesson he'd learned many times in his own climb to the top. He motioned to the manager, paid his hefty bill with a 100% tip, a silent acknowledgement of the value she'd just provided, financial and otherwise, and left without another word. But he didn't forget her name. He memorized it, etched it into his mind, along with the image of her tired, defiant eyes. Outside, the wind whipping off the river slapped his face, a bracing chill that mirrored the old thrill coursing through his veins. It was the hunt for undiscovered value, a pursuit he lived for, and he knew with a certainty that resonated deep within him that he had just found it. The next morning, back in the polished high-tech sanctuary of King Capital, Robert wasted no time. He buzzed his legal counsel, Julia Park, a woman whose reputation for meticulousness was legendary. "Julia," he began, his voice crisp and to the point, "I need you to pull the FINRA archives on an Anna Chen. She's a waitress." Julia Park. A woman who rarely showed surprise, nearly dropped the phone. A waitress. Her boss, the formidable Robert King, was asking her to investigate a waitress's financial past. It was highly unusual, to say the least, but she knew better than to question Robert's instincts. He had a sixth sense for these things. Within an hour, an email landed in Robert's inbox. Julia was efficient, almost frighteningly so. The bullet points confirmed his suspicions, and then one Anna Chen, permanently barred for cause, the official black mark. 2. Proceedings sealed unusual. This immediately raised a red flag. Sealed proceedings often meant something was being hidden, or someone powerful wanted it kept quiet. 3. Original whistleblower Grant Leland, now COO of boutique bank Vanderlake & Co. And there it was, the name, the connection. Robert's eyes narrowed. Grant Leland. He'd known Grant for 15 years. Smooth, charming, utterly lethal in a knife fight, metaphorically speaking. A man who always landed on his feet, often at someone else's expense. This wasn't just a random accusation. This was personal. He didn't need to instruct Julia further. He knew what to do. He called in a few favors, the kind that only a man of his stature could command. An old college roommate at the SEC, now high up in enforcement. A hedge fund buddy who owed him a block trade from years ago, a debt that was finally coming due. By midnight, the fragments started to coalesce into a disturbing picture. He had doctored chat logs hinting at manipulated communications. A compliance intern fresh out of business school who had abruptly quit the day Anna was dismissed, vanishing without a trace. And then the smoking gun that made his blood run cold, a Cayman shell company, its beneficial owner matching Grant Leland's discreet Upper East Side home address. He typed one stark line into his leather-bound notebook, a summary of his growing conviction: motive equals promotion plus payout. Opportunity equals back office admin access. Smoking gun equals missing server. The pieces fit together with chilling precision. Then he closed the laptop, the glowing screen reflecting the iconic Manhattan skyline outside his penthouse office. The city, a monument to ambition and power, seemed to mock the injustice he'd just uncovered. If he was right, and his gut honed by decades of high-stakes finance told him he absolutely was a woman whose market instincts rivaled the legendary Cathie Wood, and whose risk management rivaled the meticulous Cliff Asness, had been systematically erased. All for a mid-six-figure raise and a rung up the corporate ladder for a man like Grant. That didn't just offend him professionally, it offended him existentially. It was a perversion of the meritocracy he believed deep down Wall Street should represent. The very next evening, Robert returned to Pier 57. He didn't make a reservation. He just walked in, found Anna's section, and sat down. He ordered nothing but hot tea, a stark contrast to the usual steak and whiskey crowd. He wanted to make it clear he wasn't there for the food. Anna, recognizing him instantly, approached his table, a hint of suspicion in her eyes. She raised an eyebrow, a silent question. "Refills cost patience," she said, her voice dry. She wasn't going to make this easy for him. "I've got capital and time," he replied, his gaze steady, unwavering. "I need 10 minutes after your shift." It wasn't a request, it was a statement of intent. Midnight found them at a back table, long after the last diners had left, the salt shakers and condiment bottles pushed aside. The restaurant was quiet now, save for the distant hum of the kitchen and the gentle lapping of the Hudson against the pier. Robert laid a manila folder between them. It wasn't thick, but its contents were heavy with consequence printouts of her old case, highlighted anomalies, a meticulously reconstructed timeline that ended with her signature on a confession letter. She swore she'd never seen a document that had sealed her fate. Anna's hands, usually so steady carrying trays, trembled as she picked up the documents. Her eyes scanned the familiar, painful details, the cold official language that had stripped her of everything. A wave of raw emotion, years of suppressed anger and despair, washed over her. "You think I didn't try?" she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears. "Lawyers cost more than I made in a quarter. When the ban hit, every bank treated me like radioactive waste, like I had the plague." Robert didn't interrupt. He let her speak, letting the years of frustration pour out. When she finished, her voice cracking, he closed the folder, a decisive snap that echoed in the quiet room. His eyes, usually so calculating, held a rare depth of understanding. "I'm offering war chest platform and name," he stated, his voice low and firm. "You bring brain." It was a simple, brutal assessment, but it was also the most honest offer she'd received in years. And in exchange, she asked, her guard still up, but a flicker of something, a tiny spark of hope igniting in her eyes. "Help me expose Grant, clear your record, and split upside 50-50. Robert laid out his terms. "I'm not a philanthropist. I'm an investor. I invest in underpriced assets. Right now, that's you." It was a declaration, a challenge, and an undeniable opportunity. He wasn't offering charity. He was offering a partnership, a chance to reclaim her worth. Anna exhaled slowly, her breath fogging the window beside them. Streetlights outside painted the river gold, a shimmering reflection of the promise laid before her. She thought of the past 3 years, waking at 4 a.m., to study for the Series 7. She could never use running P&L simulations on the back of guest checks, dreaming of candles and tickers, of a life she thought was irrevocably lost. Could she truly trust this man? Could she dare to hope again? She met his gaze, a quiet resolve hardening her features. "I'm in," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But we do this my way, thorough, public, and final. No more whispers, no more backroom deals." She wanted total vindication and undeniable truth. They shook hands again. This time the bargain felt less like a handshake and more like flint striking steel, a spark igniting a fire that would soon rage. The very next week, Robert King, a man who moved with the speed and precision of a predator, set things in motion. He created a shell entity, Asterion Holdings, capitalizing it with a cool $10 million. Its sole employee, Anna Chen, with the rather intriguing title of Head of Special Situations. To keep things under wraps to prevent rivals from sniffing out this nascent alliance, he leased her a windowless office 4 floors below King Capital's main operations. It was discreet, almost clandestine, the perfect hideout for a genius about to unleash her fury. Anna's first act, with the full backing of King Capital's resources, was nothing short of forensic. She set about reconstructing the 2019 trades that had sunk her, meticulously piecing together the shattered fragments of her past. She subpoenaed broker records, matched fills, with an almost obsessive attention to detail, rebuilt timestamps second by agonizing second. And there it was, the 6-microsecond gap, a digital phantom, where Grant's forged orders had appeared, momentarily hijacking the system, redirecting funds, and ultimately framing her. It was a digital fingerprint, undeniable proof of his treachery. Her second act was equally strategic. She needed an ally, a witness. She remembered the young compliance intern, Lila Ortega, who had vanished after Anna's dismissal. A quick search revealed Lila was now teaching yoga in Queens, a world away from the cutthroat financial district. Robert provided the seed money for Lila to hire counsel, and with Anna's encouragement, Lila filed whistleblower paperwork. The result? A thumb drive innocuously labeled Grant's Midnight Downloads, containing a trove of damning evidence that would prove invaluable. For her third act, Anna turned to media strategy, a field she hadn't touched since her brief, ill-fated foray into public relations during her college days. But this wasn't about spin. It was about truth. Robert orchestrated a lunch at Pier 57, inviting Kate Wiley, the Wall Street Journal's top investigative reporter. And of course, he made sure Anna served their table. As Anna poured water and cleared plates, she subtly yet deliberately let slip key details about a rigged internal audit that cost investors $28 million. Kate Wiley, a seasoned journalist with an instinct for a big story, felt her pupils dilate. She smelled blood in the water. A story like this, with a disgraced financial genius, a billionaire backer, and a tale of corporate betrayal, was pure gold. 2 weeks later, the meticulously laid trap sprang. Grant Leland, oblivious to the storm brewing around him, walked into Vanderlake and Company's quarterly town hall meeting, expecting the usual fawning applause, the reverent silence of his subordinates. Instead, he was met by a phalanx of FBI agents, crisp in their suits, holding a warrant for securities fraud. The room erupted in chaos, whispers turning to shouts as the man who had built his career on deceit was led away in handcuffs. Simultaneously, the SEC posted a 47-page administrative release online. The financial world watched stunned as the headline blazed, "In the matter of Anna Chen, findings withdrawn, sanctions lifted, public apology." Not just a quiet reversal, but a full public vindication. News feeds exploded. Twitter, ever the arbiter of public sentiment, lit up with the hashtag #TipTheWaitress, a rallying cry for justice and a testament to Anna's unexpected path to redemption. CNBC, always hungry for drama, replayed Grant's perp walk a staggering 12 times in an hour, his downfall playing out live for millions to see. Anna watched it all unfold from the quiet, windowless office at Asterion knees, pulled to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She didn't bother to hide them. These weren't tears of sadness, but a cathartic release of years of pain, frustration, and injustice. The monitor showed her old funds returns, a cruel, triumphant ghost of what could have been. If she'd stayed in charge, if she hadn't been sabotaged, investors would have been up a staggering 212%. Regret tasted metallic, sharp, and bitter, but the sweet, overwhelming taste of vindication, that tasted infinitely better. It was the taste of her life, finally being given back. The financial world was buzzing. Robert Ever, the showman and the strategist, scheduled a live investor day not just for Asterion, but for Anna. Hedge fund allocators, private equity giants, and family office representatives packed into the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, an eager, expectant crowd. Rumors swirled like champagne bubbles. King's protege, they whispered. The waitress who cracked the code. The next hot hand on Wall Street. The anticipation was palpable. Anna stepped onto the stage, a beacon of quiet confidence in a sharp navy blazer. It was new, bought only an hour earlier, the tag still sewn inside a small human detail amidst the grandeur. She took a deep breath, scanning the sea of expectant faces, and then she delivered her pitch. It wasn't just a presentation. It was a masterclass. One frontier fintech in Southeast Asia trading at cash. A bold, high-growth play targeting underserved markets. 2, carbon credit arbitrage post-EU regulation. A complex, environmentally conscious strategy anticipating global shifts. 3, distressed office REITs convertible into life-sci labs. A brilliant contrarian bet on the future of real estate, transforming old assets into cutting-edge facilities. She fielded questions for 40 intense minutes, a barrage of inquiries from some of the sharpest minds in finance. Not once did she falter. Not once did she say, "I'll get back to you." Her answers were precise, her logic unassailable, her vision crystal clear. By the end, Asterion's initial target raise of $250 million was shattered. Commitments topped a staggering $400 million. Investors, usually reserved and calculating, literally formed a line to the podium, eager to throw their capital behind this reborn genius. Anna signed the last subscription document at 9:17 p.m., her hand aching but her spirit soaring. She high-fived Robert, a genuine, uninhibited grin spreading across her face. Then the adrenaline, the sheer pressure of the day, finally caught up. She bolted to the kitchen, found a quiet corner, and vomited from the sheer intensity of it all. Wiping her mouth, she looked at her reflection in the gleaming chrome fridge, a faint smile playing on her lips. "You're back, kid," she whispered to herself, a promise and a declaration. She wasn't just back, she was reborn. 6 months later, Asterion Holdings wasn't just a success, it was a phenomenon. The fund was up a phenomenal 38% net, a performance that turned heads and sent ripples through the industry. Anna, true to her generous spirit, didn't forget where she came from. She paid off her parents' mortgage in Flushing, lifting a decades-long burden from their shoulders. She bought Pier 57's entire staff, the same people who'd seen her through her darkest days, a round of flights to Hawaii, a well-deserved escape. And yet, despite her newfound wealth, she still walked to work, carrying her lunch in a humble paper bag, a quiet reminder of her journey. Forbes, the Bible of the business world, put her on the cover. The headline was iconic, "The Waitress Who Ate Wall Street." It was a story that resonated far beyond finance, a testament to resilience and the triumph of justice. Hollywood producers, always sniffing out a compelling narrative, circled like vultures, wanting the life rights to her incredible story. She optioned the story for a cool 7 figures, but with one non-negotiable clause, she retained script approval. And specifically, no romantic subplot unless she approved the dialogue. She wasn't interested in a manufactured romance. Her story was about intellect, integrity, and overcoming adversity. Through it all, she kept her Thursday shifts at the restaurant. It wasn't for the money, of course. It was a grounding ritual, a way to stay connected to the real world, to remember the person she was before the world tried to break her. When hedge fund hotshots, now recognizing her from magazine covers and financial news, approached her, she'd wink a mischievous glint in her eye. Tips appreciated, but alpha appreciated more. It was her way of saying, I'm still Anna, but I'm also Anna Chen, the financial force. And she was just getting started. One crisp winter evening, months after her triumphant return, Anna and Robert stood on the same pier where they'd first truly met. Snow, soft and silent, salted the wooden boards beneath their feet. Ferries, their lights twinkling, hooted in the dark, their mournful calls echoing across the river. It was a moment of quiet reflection, a pause in the whirlwind of their new, exhilarating lives. "Ever regret not staying anonymous?" Robert asked, his voice low, his gaze fixed on the distant lights of the city. He knew the allure of obscurity, the freedom it offered, but he also understood the power of visibility. Anna watched her breath cloud in the cold night air, a transient puff of white against the darkness. She considered his question, letting the weight of it settle. "Anonymity is poverty," she finally said, her voice clear and resonant. "Visibility is power. I choose power." It wasn't about ego, it was about agency, about having a voice, a platform, and the ability to shape her own destiny and perhaps the world's. Robert smiled, a rare, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Next target," he prompted, knowing her mind was always a step ahead. Anna turned to face him, her eyes bright with a new vision. Climate-adaptive agriculture, she declared, her passion evident. "The world's going to need food and dignity. Let's finance both." It was a bold, ambitious goal, a move beyond pure profit toward impact, a testament to her evolved perspective. They shook gloved hands, a silent pact, two silhouettes against the city lights. They were living proof that markets, like rivers, correct course eventually. And that genius, once suffocated, once forced into hiding, simply finds new air, new purpose, and new ways to thrive. It was a powerful, inspiring testament to human resilience and the enduring belief in second chances. If you've ever been counted out, pushed aside, or told you weren't good enough, this is your sign. Push through. Don't let anyone dim your light. Hit like, share this story so the next genius, the next brilliant mind waiting in the wings gets a faster comeback. Because the world needs every single one of them. Anna's story isn't some sugary fairy tale. It's a hard-won balance sheet of resilience etched in grit and determination. Let's break it down, shall we? Assets. Her undeniable talent, that raw, innate financial genius. Her unwavering grit, the kind that lets you pin on a trainee name tag after managing a 9-figure portfolio. And yes, one billionaire who listened, who saw beyond the uniform. These were the pillars of her comeback. Liabilities. Sabotage, the insidious betrayal that nearly destroyed her. The corrosive doubt, both internal and external, that threatened to consume her. And the systemic gatekeeping, the rigid structures that often refuse to acknowledge talent outside their predetermined boxes. These were the weight she carried. Net result: undeniable vindication. A public clearing of her name, plus compound interest, both literally and figuratively. Her wealth wasn't just financial. It was a wealth of purpose, of self-worth, and of influence. Remember this: markets discount the future. They try to price in what's coming, what's next. But too often people discount themselves too cheaply. They undervalue their own potential, their own brilliance, their own capacity for a comeback. Don't be one of them. Remember, the whistleblower rule exists for a reason, to protect those brave enough to expose wrongdoing. But courage isn't found in the footnotes of a legal document. It's only found in the doing, in the terrifying act of speaking truth to power. It's in the Lila Ortegas of the world. And perhaps most importantly, remember this when life bars you from the front door, when every conventional path is blocked. Don't despair. Build a side entrance. Make sure it has better lighting, a clearer view, and a wider path for others to follow, because sometimes the most unconventional route leads to the most extraordinary destination. Asterion Holdings, under Anna's visionary leadership, continued its meteoric rise. Its second fund just passed $1 billion in commitments, a testament to her undeniable prowess and the trust she'd earned from investors. She didn't just rebuild her career, she built an empire, one rooted in integrity and innovation. Anna, always one to recognize talent and loyalty, brought Lila Ortega, the former compliance intern and crucial whistleblower, back into the fold. Lila, no longer teaching yoga, was now Asterion's chief risk officer, her meticulous nature perfectly suited to safeguarding the firm's future. And Pier 57's busboy Marco, a sharp, observant young man who'd seen Anna through her waitressing days, was hired as head of community outreach. Why? Because, as Anna often said, capital without community is just expensive math. She understood that true success wasn't just about numbers. It was about connection, about purpose, about building something meaningful. Grant Leland's trial was set to begin next spring, a final public reckoning. Anna would testify wearing the same navy blazer she'd worn on her investor day, now altered to fit shoulders that were no longer stooped by shame, but squared with justice. It would be the final chapter in her long, arduous fight. Robert King, content in the knowledge that he'd played a pivotal role in this extraordinary story, planned to step back from day-to-day managing. His legacy trade, he often mused, wasn't a stock, a bond, or a company. It was a person. It was Anna Chen. And somewhere tonight, another waitress, another cashier, another voice, dismissed, is running spreadsheets in the margins of her life, sketching binomial trees on paper napkins, dreaming of a future that seems impossibly far away. They're waiting for someone to overhear, for someone to see past the uniform, past the circumstances, and recognize the genius within. So what do you think? Are you ready to see the world differently? Subscribe if you believe the next big idea, the next transformative innovation, the next true genius might just come from the person refilling your coffee, because it often does. Conclusion: Anna Chen lost her name, her reputation, her entire professional identity. But she didn't just reclaim it. She reclaimed it louder, stronger, and with a resonance that echoed across Wall Street. She learned humility in heeled shoes serving tables, and she rediscovered her genius in an apron calculating complex financial models while balancing lobster rolls. A billionaire listened, yes. But let's be clear, she did the walking. She did the fighting. She earned every single step of her comeback. So the next time you see competence wearing a uniform, the next time you encounter brilliance in an unexpected place, do more than just acknowledge it. Tip, cash, sure, but more importantly, pay attention. Because markets, like life itself, are inherently inefficient. And the biggest alpha, the most extraordinary value, is always found in recognizing what others refuse to see.